All right, we're live. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll give you a couple more minutes to tune in.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, today with me, I have Mr. Andrew Haan from Cornerstone Alliance, who's going to talk to us today about this really exciting alley revitalization project that they have going on, and they're looking to get some community engagement in. So, really excited to have you on, Andrew. So, we'll just wait a couple more seconds and then we can get started.
I appreciate you having us.
And then also later today, we'll have Rich Hensel, who is the president of the Downtown Development Authority. He's going to be talking about the acquisition of the State Theater and some of their plans for that building as well. So, all right, Andrew. So let's just hop into it. Do you want to do a quick introduction of who you are and kind of your role at Cornerstone?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Again, my name is Andrew Haan. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Cornerstone Alliance. I'm fairly new to the team. I joined this April after spending my last 5 years running Kalamazoo Downtown Partnership. So most of my career has been spent working in downtowns and placemaking and really engaging with our communities and building great places that people can have pride in and bring economic success and build community around. So I'm super excited. For those of you that don't know Cornerstone, we are a countywide economic development organization. We've been around for about 30 years, have kind of been all over the place with the types of initiatives that we're involved in. We do very traditional economic development, working to attract employers to the county, working with site selectors to show them, all the data and the reasons that they'd want to help their client move to Berrien County, and have been involved in a lot of different assorted community-based projects in Benton Harbor and throughout the county. So this is one we're excited about and want to share kind of our vision, how we developed it, and ways that the community can get involved to provide some more input and help kind of shape this thing a little more firmly so we can move forward and start implementation.
Yeah, well, thank you again, Andrew. So I thought it would be a good idea to do this live because there are a lot of exciting development projects happening. And since I've launched the CDC, one of the things that I often hear is that the community does not necessarily feel a part of this process, or they don't necessarily know about these things until they happen. And so now that I'm actually doing this work, I see that it's often talked about quite often in certain circles, but how do we get that information to the general public? And so again, I appreciate you for coming on with us today. So do you want me to share your slides now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So Andrew has a presentation of the Alley project and some of the ideas that they have and how the space could be utilized. And so I'll let him take it from here.
Thanks, Ashley. And again, just so grateful to have this opportunity to tap into your audience. And we'll talk, I'll talk briefly about other ways that we want to get people involved in this. So, all right, now I'm trying to advance the slides and I'm trying to see how this works.
So you have to put it in presentation mode.
Present, okay. Of course.
And we just tested it and it was fine, so.
We did.
I'll give you a second to reshare that. But in the meantime, guys, if you have any questions as Andrew's presenting or just general questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll be able to see them on our end so we can get those answers for you guys.
All right.
I see some of our board members in the comments. Hi, Miss Diane. Miss Deidre Fields. I'll tell you guys later about an exciting project, an initiative that she's leading as well for one of the local development initiatives. All right, I think we're good.
Are you seeing it? Okay. Great. I'm sorry. I'm spread on two screens here. So, and I may not be looking at the camera. So we wanted to start just as a little bit of context. This alley is actually the alley that runs behind our office that is on Main Street between Pipestone and Colfax. And, there's been a lot of investment, a lot of activity on this block. The apartments on the corner of Pipestone and Main were just developed and opened up in the last couple of years. Our organization moved into the building we're in about 5 years ago. Spent some invested in the former F&M Bank building, the one with the big kind of classical Greek facade on it. We've invested into that facade, are seeking to find a new use for that building and really shore up our downtown. Of course, there's been the Houndstooth, a new restaurant on the block. So we wanted to think on how we can leverage that and kind of supercharge that and get more activity, more people, more things going on in our downtown. And our kind of the first thing we did was to go back and look at existing plans that, we didn't need to reinvent the wheel. The community has given a lot of input on the space and the area over the last few years. And we pulled up a couple different plans. Kind of front and center there, you'll see the City Center Park plan, which was done in 2015. And you see that connection between the alley and the City Center Park is what we're going to talk about. And then likewise, there is both of those images are from the park plan. So if you look where the arrows are pointing, that is Pipestone. And you'll see the space that we're talking about continues to the west on Pipestone. So these were a couple quotes. I usually don't like to commit the sin of reading your slide, but I'm going to do it. They came right out of the plan, that the community had already approved. The Central Promenade provides a pedestrian connection through the entire park and can also be used for community events such as art fairs. It would continue both east and west of the park to connect with future development projects. And then it goes on to talk a little bit more about, the features it might have. But this was already there, this idea of having a promenade that spans our downtown. The plan goes on to talk about public art and to develop a Main Street entertainment district that capitalizes on the arts district and stimulates investment along Main Street, which I think might be a good segue for Rich and his discussion about the State Theater, this idea of that there's, an arts corridor, an entertainment corridor along Main Street. And, one of the other things is to work with developers and property owners to incorporate public art and artistic displays into the development project. So that's really exactly what we're looking to do. One thing that we've looked at and we're investigating the feasibility of is doing a 3D projection installation in the back. So there's some really neat things you can do. That's actually a real building that you see on your screen there, and it's got projectors and they can do some really neat stuff. So look up 3D projection mapping on YouTube and you'll find some incredible things. And we're looking if that might be a viable option. Another key thing about these spaces is the opportunity to use them for entrepreneurship. And that can mean a lot of different things. Having a great space that has activity on it could provide opportunities for entrepreneurship in the space where you see, things like vendor tents and art fairs, markets, vintage markets. But putting those people in those events also makes the brick and mortar spaces around the alley and beyond attractive for investment. And, I think it's really important to note too, that one of the things in the plan that it says is that growing jobs by ones and twos is key to creating strong local economies. So, we're kind of walking and chewing gum at the same time, right? Our organization is working on those 100 job projects that might go in a more suburban area, but also those small opportunities for entrepreneurs. So the bolded passage there says that the talent and potential already exists right at home, and we believe in that very firmly. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about what it would actually look like to invest in this space. We have a kind of a draft site plan, which is our first take at what might actually happen and work back there. So those arrows that you saw previously are pointing at the same place in this one. It's just a block over to the west. So you see that promenade. And again, the idea is that this block would be, the block of the alley would be closed to vehicular traffic and really be a pedestrianized space. So there would be bollards at the end, some sort of a gateway feature, really drawing people's attention into the space and then also back out of the space towards City Center Park. The features that you see called out there, some sort of string lights above the alley to kind of frame the space. And in a minute here, you'll see a picture of a project that has something like that. A surface mural to actually create an artistic element on the surface that you can follow. Of course, furniture and benches, And we have a green space out there too. There has been some new parking that's been added, but that green area, we're kind of making into a lawn and a smaller event space. And then that darker of the two parking lots is actually one that could be closed periodically to be part of an event. So again, I already spoke about a couple of the amenities, but what we've talked about is, all these different amenities. Here's two views that you see. The wider one is actually looking from Wall Street towards the back of the buildings that face Main Street. And then the vertically oriented one would be on Pipestone looking west. So you kind of see that space drawing people into it. So again, surface mural, overhead lighting, seating. We'd like to make this some sort of an outdoor office space where there's free Wi-Fi. People can come down and work on their schoolwork or their professional work. Would be available for programming. We'll have the gateway signage. Certainly, there's already one great restaurant out there that has dining that faces it, and then potentially that the light installation projection. So it's cool, but this is kind of abstract. So I want to draw everyone's attention to what a project similar to this looks like. And it's one that I worked on during my time in Kalamazoo. It's a little alley called Bates Alley. For any of you that are familiar with Kalamazoo, this is the block of Michigan Avenue, which is the main street, just a block past the Radisson. It's behind the buildings that are on the right-hand side. For many years, Old Peninsula Brew Pub was there and Coney Island at the end. So in 2018, it was just a service alley. It was kind of this greasy alley where they stored dumpsters, and a handful of people knew there was a few parking spots back there, but it didn't really bring anything to downtown. So an idea was brought to us to try a pilot project and make that into a public space, and we worked on that for about a year. Really became a true community project. The picture you see there is a family that came down the day that we painted the mural. It was like a paint by numbers mural. And the installation was community led. The mural itself was designed by a local artist. And this is a little bit better view. This was taken from a parking garage up above not long after it opened. So there's that lighting that really frames the space. The mural was done with kind of an organic water theme. And it's really totally changed the space. It's become an iconic outdoor space in downtown. So again, I would encourage people to go check it out. Music and arts. So all summer long, Wednesday nights, there's programming there. Every single Wednesday, there's music. That's a standing series. It's been used for other one-off events. Each of the restaurants on that block have decks on the back. There's been vendor fairs. If you do an Instagram search for the hashtag Bates Alley, you'll see all kinds of spots. You see, wedding photos down there, wedding parties. And it's actually attracted development to one of the surface parking lots that was on one side of it. So that project has really worked. As I mentioned, that's the free weekly music series that's out there. It draws a ton of people. We could envision something like this happening. We are not an events organization. We do host them from time to time, but we would be looking for partner organizations to program that space. This was another event that just happened a few weeks ago, or back in September. So Hispanic Heritage Month party happened there. There's the seating. That's kind of looking the other way. The bars and restaurants that are on this block have really benefited from it, and it's added an amenity for them. And it was a big thing during, kind of the lockdown phase of the pandemic, but it's something that stuck around after and has become a real draw for them. This is one of the vendor fairs that happens there called Vintage in the Zoo. And it's really allowed some young entrepreneurs the opportunity to launch some of their businesses there. And some of those have gone on to be brick and mortar businesses. So again, we really view this as a place for the community. And, in order for it to be for the community, it has to be designed by the community. So that's one of the reasons we're here today. We're going to be doing some more work throughout this month and into the next couple months. We don't have a date yet, but we are going to have a community open house so people can come share their ideas in the space and actually see it. We have a online survey that I've given to Ashley here that can be shared with everyone, and take 2 or 3 minutes. We'd love for you to hear more about what types of furniture, what types of events, what the art would look like. We're going to try and get at some existing events and kind of meet folks where they are, and have some handouts at local businesses. And again, the lighting, the furniture, the mural, the programming, the gateway signs. We have a concept, but we need to hear from you to really make the final decision or the final input as to what that space would look like. I just have one last slide. This actually came from when we presented to the city. We're going to go back to city commission. It says November. It may end up being a little later in the year, but we're going to bring them the findings and what we heard from the community, and then at that time be asking them to close that alley to traffic as a pilot project for probably 2 seasons, and then the permission to paint the surface mural. So I tried to be quick. I don't know how concise I was, but that's the project, and we really hope to hear from you. So.
No, that was really great. So I did link the survey in the comments for those of you who would like to give your input. We had some really great comments on the page. Shavoy said, "The day our downtown looks like a downtown everywhere else is a dream of mine. So to see the dream of mine. So I'm very hopeful with what you guys are working on." Let's see. Miss Gorman Burton suggested digital marquees may be a good addition to downtown. She said she knows that's not what we're talking about right now, but she just wanted to throw that suggestion out there. A couple of people have gone to Bates Alley and said it was really beautiful to see. So that's really nice that some local people have already been there. Elizabeth McCree, and maybe you can provide some context to that. She said free Wi-Fi throughout the city would be significant. Trying to get Wi-Fi when my office was down there was horrible. I've never had it when my office was downtown. And I know that throughout this summer, I was able to use the outdoor available Wi-Fi that's located downtown in the Arts District. But I know that there are other areas that you guys are trying to identify throughout the city as well to have free Wi-Fi. Is that correct?
It is. We actually received a federal grant to support free Wi-Fi throughout the city. Unfortunately, to literally blanket the city is a really, really big project. But we've identified, I think, 8 to 10 different locations. We're hoping to get that will be really accessible to people and is spread out geographically throughout the city. We do have the one we launched in the Arts District, which candidly is a pretty small space even within the Arts District. So we're going to try and boost that. Again, we're looking at a number of the different parks in the city and some of the housing developments, and are very, we think we're going to be able to move pretty quickly on that. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to share more before the year is out about that.
Perfect. Miss Ford, Sister Ford said, "Love the idea of community participation. Count me in." And then who's going to be maintaining the area?
I think we'll maintain. I don't have a firm answer for that, but I assure you that it's our back door and it's going to look good. So, who the contract will be with or anything, we've not gotten that far, but it's really important to us that we put our best foot forward, and it's well maintained, it's swept, it's, the trash is picked up, the lights are working, all that stuff. So I'll certainly pledge that it's going to be kept in good shape.
Great. And that could be, I'm going to throw it out there, could be an opportunity for a local business contract, So, and then let's see. Andrew, is there an approximate timeline for implementation to begin?
We imagine this a 2023 project. So I'd love it to be open for, kind of summer season. I think that's our target would be, Memorial Day, so that it's available. And certainly we would envision it's going to be open year round if people want to be out there, but I'd love to cut a ribbon the end of May next year. So we've got our foot on the gas and are moving quickly. We are going to be doing a crowdfunding project too. So our organization is investing pretty significant funds into this. We do have some grant dollars that came from the state, and we'll have an opportunity to, if people want to get their name on a plaque on one of the benches or whatever, for the community to help support the project too. So I'll get you the information once we have that. That'll be later in the year.
Perfect. So just some other general comments. I'm excited to see this project come to life. So can you just reiterate? I know that you guys are going to be doing the surveys, and then after that, you'll have to go back to the city to present again. Is this something that needs to be approval? How can people kind of show their support for this project? What can we do?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I mean, the survey is set up so that it'll show how many people have participated. There is a little block for your zip code, so we'd love it if people take the survey and fill out their zip code so that we can show that this really is the people of Benton Harbor that have given the input and had their voice heard through the survey. When we have a date for when we'll be presenting, we'll make sure and communicate that. A little in-person support and helping hand is always welcome too.
Perfect. And then last question is, how can community members stay updated?
So we will be doing some email update stuff, and that's one I regret that I don't have a link to share with you. We do have, I think there's a link to sign up with our overall newsletter on our website. So cstonealliance.org. That's going to be a little more broad news. So we will, I don't have as good of an answer as I'd like for that one, but we'll make sure that we communicate that with your organization to get out to your audience once we do have that.
Oh, great. All right. Ms. Gorman-Burton just finished the survey, so great. Thank you so much. And then one last question, is, are they doing the Christmas tree / lights this year? Would be nice to do some walkthroughs then if the weather cooperates.
So I'm going to defer to Rich because I bet he can speak to that at the next part of the Lunch and Learn here. But that's actually something we just talked about with our team. We'd considered trying to do a Halloween event. We think it might be more, Thanksgiving / Christmas time event. So bringing people down that are already here in the park would be a great idea. So I'll add to, follow us on, we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the platforms, and that's a great place to get updates. And we don't post 20 times a day, so we won't blow up your feed too much.
Yeah. All righty, perfect. Well, thank you again. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to just leave them in the comments, and I'll make sure we get them over to Andrew, and then we'll definitely keep you guys updated on this project. So thank you again, Andrew. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having us. Take care.
No problem. All right. All right, so now I'm going to bring in Rich Hensel, who is the president of the Downtown Development Authority. Hi, Rich.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Rich is also one of the newest board members for the Benton Harbor Community Development Corporation. He joined our board a little under 2 months ago, so really excited to have his expertise and genius and historical information on our team to really help lead and supercharge our efforts. So thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. For those of you who may have seen, I know there was like a really huge story that the State Theater had recently been acquired under new ownership and has, there's a new push to bring the building back to life. And so because a lot of us have a special affinity to that building, a lot of us really care about that building and really want to see it come together. I thought it would be great to have Rich come talk a little bit about that process and, what some of the next steps are. So Rich, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the introduction, and I hope I can live up to the standards you're talking about. And I am very pleased to serve on this board. It's an honor. I'm basically here to talk about the theater. The theater itself has a history that goes back to 1941 when it was...
I'm sorry to cut you off. Before we start talking about the theater, can you tell us a little bit about the Downtown Development Authority and some of the things you guys do?
Sure. Well, the Benton Harbor Downtown Development Authority was established in 1980. It's been more active recently, since about 2009, when it was reconstituted. And since then, it's been involved in a number of different projects. My involvement started in 2014. And after serving on the board for a short time, had the fortune, good fortune of being elected president. Since then, we've had a number of turnover in the different board members, and we've got a great team now that's really focused on service as well as getting together once a month to talk. And that's kind of an exciting thing to see and to be a part of. You may have seen some of the work that we've done for the past few years. We've been doing the holiday lights ceremonies and the celebration. We took that over from the Parks Conservancy, who wanted to get out of the business. And since then, we went from spending $20,000 a year down to more like $10,000, $11,000 a year by working with Youth Build to bring a Benton Harbor component into the decorating itself, and so that the money didn't leave the community as it had been previously on its way to Kalamazoo. So we've been very fortunate to have that partnership. They help us put up lights and store them. And the funds that I mentioned, approximately $10,000, is money that's spent on the equipment, and we do pay Youth Build members for their services, so and the storage. So that's primarily been our thing. This year we opened our Welcome Center, which was a new thing for Benton Harbor. We hadn't had a Welcome Center per se. It's something the DDA has been working towards for several years. And it's been a great way for us to meet visitors, but also to meet people who live in town. And our volunteers are Benton Harbor residents or people who are somehow connected to Benton Harbor and have a love for the city. So they're able to give out good directions and advice based on their actual experience versus perhaps other welcome centers that are not based in our city, so they're not familiar with all the great things we have going on here.
Yeah, so if you all are familiar, when you drive down Territorial Road downtown, there is like this blue container. That is the Welcome Center. So a lot of times we meet in there. You'll always see great conversation happening in there. So feel free to stop by and say hello. All righty. So getting into the State Theater conversation, can you talk to us about the process that, like how you guys came to acquire this building?
Sure. A number of years ago, there was a group of people who owned the building and leased it to operators. I was one of those people in that group. And so from about 2002 to 2007, the theater was open, and some people may remember that if they were in town then. A lot of the films were art films that were shown and old films, some classics. But there was also a live performance, talent shows, and all of that, those kinds of things that brought community members and youth in the community together. Unfortunately, that group of people decided to part ways, and the building's been closed since 2007. Just before COVID, I started to try to work with the previous owner to see what his plans were, if there was some way we could get something going there to try to get people back into the building and have it contribute to downtown. That effort kind of came to nothing with COVID. And in December of 21, the owner approached me and asked if I would like a theater. So I don't want the theater. I think the community should have a theater. And so the theater was given to the Downtown Development Authority, and we've just finished up all the paperwork for the transfer. In the meantime, we've been blessed with a gift of $100,000 in cash to help us with stabilization and the planning for its rehabilitation.
Great. So what would be some of the next steps now that you have possession over it? I know that, like you said, you got $100,000, but that is a drop in the bucket for what's needed to actually get the building back up and running. So while we're all excited that there is this new push behind it, there are things that need to be done in order for that to take place. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, first and foremost at this point is we're going to be patching that roof, which has had some roof leaks for a number of years now. So there's been some water damage that has to be remediated, and we've had an engineer who's gone through the building and given us a preliminary report. We want to get that person back in there to do a more detailed examination of the structure to make sure that if there's anything hiding that we weren't able to see initially, that we get it propped up or fixed up so that we're not looking at a disaster in the short term. And we'll be working with the Brownfields Redevelopment Authority, who said that they were interested in being a part of the project to do that remedial work to take out. There's a lot of moldy stuff, and old paint and such that needs to be taken care of, so the building will be safe and sound for the 21st century. So that's where we're going, and as a part of that, of course, we're going to have to take a look at a serious capital campaign, because we do know that just with the sort of casual examination of the building, the engineer was saying that we could expect at least $1.5 million just to get the building operating again, and that's not with any bells and whistles. So we want bells and whistles. So there's going to be, more work to be done raising money. We want to see the rigging replaced and repaired, and all of the equipment that we need to be able to stage performance, probably music performance, more than theatrical performances, based on what we have there in terms of the building. And we also want to go back to showing some films, so we'll be working on projection.
Great. How can community members get involved in this process?
Well, they can keep in touch with us, for one thing. You'll get our email address. So if you are interested in participating, that's our email address there. You can contact us. As we move forward into spring, we'll begin the capital campaign. And so people will be able to help us get the word out. Even if you're not able to write a big check, anything that you do along those lines will be helpful, because it takes a community to do a project like this. It's not something that one group can really do on its own and make successful. And I think that's a lesson that's learned from our previous attempts through the years, is that we see that without a community of support, the theater can't operate.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
So I just want to say I appreciate the people who are asking that question, because it's a very important question.
Right. And in addition to that, not just getting it back operable, but there has to be a plan for sustainability as well, which is a whole other factor. So yeah, so we do have a couple questions and comments. I'm going to scroll back up so I can get to it. Ms. Gorman Burton and Bernice Mason, they said hello, and it's good seeing you again. Angela Doyle said, my 14-year-old daughter was just saying she wishes it was open, so hopefully we can make that happen for her. Let's see. How many people of color are on the Downtown Business Authority? I think maybe she meant the Development Authority board.
Well, there are currently 10 of us, and let's put it this way, 2 of us are not. The rest are.
Okay.
For the most part, I think the majority of us are probably city residents, or residents specifically of the downtown district, which is required by the state of Michigan. And then we have business owners. So that there are a good number of people who've served through the recent past who are people of color, and they continue to contribute in different ways to making our mission a success.
And do you currently have open positions on that board?
Or
how does that process work?
Well, I think we just filled one and I think we're okay.
Deidre was joined, right?
So Deidre Fields is our newest board member, and Deidre's been a really great volunteer for us. She's volunteered in the Welcome Center, greeting people, and she's also helped out in a number of other ways. So we're excited to have Deidre, and I believe tonight she'll be completely done with her appointment process when the City Commission meets. But Commissioner Jerry Edwards is one of our board members. Cameron Isom. Let's see who else we have. Roger Lang. What else? I'm going to forget people, so I better stop.
Yeah, it's okay. Stop while you're ahead.
Oh, and Linda Allen. I want to say Linda Allen. A shout out to Linda Allen.
Oh yeah, yeah, nice. Alrighty. So then the Welcome Center is located at Territorial and Fifth, right at the corner. Someone said they never knew what that was, and I didn't know what it was for a really long time either. So Richard Rabbers said the DDA meetings are at City Hall, third Wednesdays at 11 a.m. So if anyone wants to join those, feel free to stop by. BH Code Enforcement started putting fines on the state's owner. My husband did the work to bring it up to code. So that's just some historical information about that building. Is there a functional living space above the theater? If so, is it occupied?
There is no functional living space in the building. There is a third floor that can't really be seen from the street, but that is a penthouse for mechanical equipment. So, that's what it was built for. It's not really being used at the moment, but I don't anticipate putting any kind of living space up there. It only occupies about the space above the lobby. That's about as deep as it is.
Okay. Someone had a question about brownfield dollars. Additional funding will be given from the Brownfield Authority, right, as far as reimbursement?
Reimbursement. I'm not sure what that.
Maybe she's asking, is this do you cover the expenses and then get reimbursed for them, or how do the brownfield dollars work?
Well, that we haven't negotiated with them specifically on how they work, but in general, I know for for-profit ventures and private property owners, they do basically recover the increase in value of the increment between what people pay for their property and what it's worth when they're done with the project. And they also do loans. And since we're a body of government, the Downtown Development Authority is part of the city government. We don't fall into either one of those categories, but they are able to give money to something like this if they choose to, and we're hoping that we'll use their funds as matching funds for private dollars.
Great. Commissioner Adams asks, what part will investor have in utilizing the state theater? Are you looking for investors, or is this just strictly charitable contributions? Okay, so it's not an investor-driven project. It's going to continue to be owned by the DDA, which is the residents, and then the donations will be charitable contributions to give to that project. Right. And Ms. Gordon Burton said, "Count me in, Rich. I have a few shekels I can donate."
Thank you very much. And I'd like to speak to that piece again about private investors. As you mentioned, this is going to be a public facility owned by the Downtown Development Authority. We may at some point lease the theater to an operating entity so that the Downtown Development Authority can focus on physical development and marketing. But initially, we anticipate operating the theater ourselves so we can see what kinds of uses actually go there and get a sense of how it can actually contribute best to the city and to the life of the city. So There will be jobs that will be produced along the way as we start to look at operations. We're running a concession stand. There'll be people who need to run theatrical lighting, sound, projection, and so there could be some good jobs there when we get to that point. But we're talking about a few years away at this point right now.
Yeah. We have a question. Can a specific nonprofit be created to maintain the theater?
Well, the Downtown Development Authority has the authority under the ordinance that established it and under state law to create corporations. So if it were advantageous, we might look at forming a corporation. But because we're a body of government, any donations made to us for a public purpose, like the rehabilitation of the theater or even its operations, because it's all a public entity, are tax deductible. So there's no benefit to creating a separate corporation that I'm aware of at the moment.
All righty. Are local contracts being prioritized? I'm assuming this means like in the development process whenever you get there.
Well, sure, when we get there, absolutely. As far as the repairs go right now, for the theater's roof to patch it, that's all going to be done by volunteers.
Great. All righty. Well, that's all we have now as far as questions. But if you guys have anything else, I'll be sure to get them to Rich. As you can see, there are a lot of great projects happening or great opportunities for projects that are happening throughout the city. So again, we just want to take some time to talk about that. And so that brings me to the next portion, which, Rich is a part of this project as well, because in addition to our board and DDA, he's also on the planning commission for the city. And the city is currently in the process of redoing its master plan. And I think the last master plan was updated in 2011. And so they've been working with a company called McKenna in order to get a new master plan established for the city. And now they're at the phase in which they're going to have neighborhood meetings. And so they are beginning this week on the 19th. So Wednesday is the first one. I was trying to drop the flyer in the comments. I wasn't quick enough, but I'll drop the flyer with all the details of the locations, time. I think they're going to begin at 6 p.m., 6 to 7:30 p.m. The one on the 19th, I can't remember. I don't want to get into noting where they are. I know they're going to have one at the Teen Center. I think maybe Second Baptist Church, the Public Library, and the Virginia Edwards Community Center. So I'll post those details so you guys can stay informed about those. But if it's in your ward, please try to come out. This is a very important process to really guide development for the city and land use, things of that nature. And so they're really trying to get community impact on that, feedback on that. Rich, do you have anything to add about that?
Well, I would say that it would be nice if you would contact your own ward commissioner if you need any more information, because they're the co-hosts. We also have paired up the at-large commissioners as well. So the first evening is Wednesday, October 9th from 6 to 7:30, and it's at Second Baptist Church. And the two co-hosts for that event are Commissioner Henry and Commissioner Seats.
Yeah, and I'll be facilitating that discussion as well. So if you want to come out and hang out with your CDC family, you can catch me at the Second Baptist Church one. So
I do want to say too, because of the fact that these are only going to be held once in each of the different areas of the city, if you can't make it to that particular evening, come somewhere else. Everyone's welcome wherever they want to show up. We're all in one city together, and we all really should know what's going on in the other neighborhoods too, so we know how resources are spent and how plans are made, so that we can all participate and take advantage of all of the great things that are happening.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rich. I think that is all. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. So, and you can stay on just in case we get some more questions. But a couple weeks ago, at the city's meeting, the legislative committee meeting, there was this huge discussion about the Benton Harbor Armory, the Bobo Brazil Community Center, and that, like the State Theater, is another building that people have this special affinity to, and that we would like to see come back to life. And through that discussion, myself and a number of other residents, um, we spoke about community-led development. And Rich, we talk about that a lot, on the CDC perspective as well, but really creating a sustainability plan for the Armory from a citizens, led by the citizens, in order to see that building up and running. And that initiative is going to be led by Ms. Deidre Fields. I'm going to post her email in the well, Deidre's in the comments. And I'll post that in the comments as well. But Deidre, if you can leave your email address for people to contact you if they're interested in being a part of that process, that would be great. Um, we took a tour of the building last week, along with Rodney Alexander, and though it does need a lot of work, it is something that could be a vibrant thing once again for our community. And so we're going to be looking to have some community discussions, and just brainstorming sessions, and things of that nature around that project. So if you're interested in being involved in that, please feel free to reach out to Deidre, who, like I said, she just left her email in the comments. So we look forward to starting that project. And obviously the building is currently owned by the city, but they are interested in seeing it back up and running, but just don't necessarily have the manpower right now to actually be able to facilitate that. And so I have a strong belief that community development should be led by the people who are going to be using the space and live in the community. And so this would be a great way to be empowered in this process. So again, thank you so much, Rich, for tuning in. I mean, for joining us. Thank you all for hanging out with us during your lunch hour. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them to me. I'll get them to the different presenters who are here today. And Commissioner Adams said, I'm more interested in putting funds into the Armory first over the State Theater. Well, from a city's perspective, they should be doing more work in order to garner these grants anyway, whether it's for the State Theater or the Armory, but community development projects. And so what I have learned, or what I have embraced in this process, is like, whatever you want to see grow, that is where you put your time and your energy into. And so there are a lot of people who want to see the State Theater come to life. And then if there are people who have more of affinity to the Armory, put in your sweat equity and make things happen. And that is what it's going to take in order for us to see and build the community that we want to have. And so people have to do the work. And so let's not talk about it. We got to be about it. So if you have any other questions, sorry, go ahead, Rich.
I would like to make one comment about that. This is not a zero-sum game. Just because one thing is important to us doesn't mean other things can't be. And because there are resources that we don't tap, that are sitting out there and available for the projects that need to be done, we need to look at ways to make all of these things happen. By sitting, as you said, around and talking about things, we don't get anything moving. But we do know that there are plenty of people who, thousands and probably tens of thousands of people who have some relationship to the Armory itself, who either, way back in the day were soldiers or sailors who went through there on their way to wars, and all of the sporting activities and other cultural things that have taken place there. That's a vast resource of people who have a direct connection or memories of some sort, who can be engaged to help bring that Armory back. And in the case of both of these projects, we need to be concerned as a community about how we sustain them. because the serious problem with the Armory that's also was in large part a problem with the theater is that if people don't support them by going to events or by making contributions, if we're talking about something charitable, they can't continue to operate. And we really need these facilities, especially the Armory, I would say, is useful on so many levels, from an economic development standpoint, to have a facility that size in downtown Benton Harbor where trade shows can take place and large meetings. These are resources that aren't in every community, and we have them. So we need to leverage all of that for the benefit of our residents, and I think we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Diane Young said, great lunch date, Ashley Hines and Richard Hensel. Likewise, Miss Diane. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and then I'll follow up after our live. And I'll also drop in the flyer detailing the community meetings for the master plan. All right, thank you. Bye.